I wanted to bring this up to just get both of your guys' perspective on it. Depression, I made a clip, and I was telling you guys, I made this clip. The title is Depression Real? Posted on Facebook groups and stuff, normal Reddit groups, which actually, it's funny thinking about it. The Facebook groups, everyone was completely like just pissed off that I even asked the question. They're like, are you kidding me? You're a complete moron. Like, of course depression is real, like blah, blah, blah. Reddit was like, it was surprising, but the people on Reddit were like, yeah, hell yeah, I like what you're kind of talking about in this clip. Like it was more of like, maybe the way I could label it is Reddit seemed like it had way more conservative values. Like they were like, yeah, people who just constantly claim they're depressed, like they're just being pussies, Okay. The people on Facebook were like, thought I was like evil just asking the question. But
gotcha.
The way that I meant to ask it and kind of what I meant was, of course, chemical imbalances, like, yeah, of course, if there's something going on, I don't even know, like I'm not well knowledge on depression and all the symptoms and what, I know obviously serotonin, you take antidepressants, there are certain things that help with it, whatever. But my question was like, is it just like, it's talked about and it's such an over-exaggerated way. People like to label themselves, I'm depressed. Like, I am a depressed person. I'm depressed. And for me, I guess where I start to feel that friction is, but you could probably not be depressed if you took more action to change your life. Like, if you ask someone, why are you depressed? And they say, my girlfriend dumped me. I'm like, you're not depressed. You just got dumped and you need to probably try to go date someone else. I see. You know what I mean? So that's like what I'm throwing out there is just wondering, because the girl that I had on, one of my good friends, she's from Spain. And she was like, people in Spain don't talk about depression like we do here in the US. Like people don't brag about it and stuff. So I don't know. I just want to especially get your opinion, therapist.
I see. I hear I hear two topics. One is depression as a clinical term, like what is either the experience of depression or what is the phenomenology of depression? I am curious
about that too, the actual like experience of it, the symptoms, but then also just that there's so many people talking about depression and anxiety, and my feeling is like, is it really that, or is it just that they're not doing more to change their life? You know what I mean? I've experienced that firsthand with myself. Like, I started taking action to take steps to try to like fix the shit that was wrong, and I felt better immediately. You start to feel better. So that's like what I'm throwing out there.
I see.
Right.
So the phenomenon of depression is a real thing. There's a reason the word exists, and for example, if you open the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Psychiatric Disorders, there's a depressive disorders.
And what does that mean? What DSM, symptoms, like what?
Well,
how do you diagnose that?
Well, the DSM-5 is what people use to diagnose, let's say in a professional setting, like if I have to, for someone's insurance, like I have to make a diagnosis and I have to report a name of something, then I would write whatever the corresponding code is.
Yeah.
The DSM is also kind of a controversial thing.
What is that?
It's like the dictionary for psychiatric disorders.
Okay.
So if personality disorders, anxiety disorders, PTSD, OCD, everything under the sun.
Gotcha.
And because it's written by humans and it's meant to account for clusters of disorders, that is to say symptoms, right? So if aliens came down from outer space, by the way, all my mental health clinicians out there, bear with me. This is my layperson description of what the DSM is.
Oh yeah. Please.
So keep it where people have very strong opinions, and I can tell you both sides why. Where again, I'm also kind of ambivalent about the DSM, but I can argue for and against it. If aliens came down from outer space and said, "Hey, what do you know? These 30,000 Americans say that they are high strung, they ruminate, they have racing thoughts, they find it difficult to." Sit still, they're restless, something like that. Yeah. We might call that anxiety, right? And you go, okay, cool, whatever. It doesn't matter what word you put. You need to account for all those symptoms, especially if it causes dysfunction. So depression would be the same way.
Yeah.
If you have a certain number of this set of symptoms, you can get labeled depressed or majorly depressed, or you have a persistent depressive disorder if it's longer than a certain time, stuff like that.
Yeah.
PTSD works the same way. So sad mood is very common, sad or depressed mood.
Yeah.
And then also there's a lethargy associated with it. You could be suicidal. You could have sleep disruptions.
Physical symptoms too?
Yeah. So like if you're having sleep disruptions, some people have early waking insomnia, like they'll fall asleep, or they'll have hypersomnia. They'll sleep a lot, but they won't feel rested. They'll still feel really slow. They'll have psychomotor retardation. Won't be able to get out of bed. Andrew Solomon is one of my favorite authors who writes about this beautifully. An Atlas of Depression is the subtitle of his book, and it's The Noonday Demon is what it's called. Cool. It's fantastic.
I'll put it in the show notes.
And a lot of celebrities have talked about depression, especially recently. There's been a big mental health breakthrough.
That's why I kind of want to bring it up. Just, I guess another question I'd have is, so you can diagnose depression. There are actual symptoms that you can pinpoint that you can diagnose it. But I guess the question I'd ask is it like, is there anything that they can do about it? Like, that's the question I have. Is there someone that is doing everything they can in their life to make it better? They're fixing the relationship with their ex or whatever. They're being a good parent to their kids. They've got a new job. They're making money. They've paid off all their loans, and they're just taking all of these steps to make their life better. But no matter what, they still are having these symptoms. And then that's the question I have is that I can understand, like, okay, well, there's obviously something like deeper going on there. But what about people that, like, if someone were to come into you and they're like, I'm depressed, Hunter. Like I've been depressed the past couple of weeks. I'm feeling like shit. I can't sleep. Like I'm whatever. And then you say, well, how's your life going? You're like, well, I just lost my job. I don't have any money. My girlfriend dumped me. Would you say, well, you're not depressed? I don't want to label you depressed. I'm saying your life fucking sucks right now. I know you wouldn't say that obviously, but like, you know what I mean? Do you understand that kind of difference? I'm trying to
And the authors of the DSM have kind of accounted for that too. And there's a bereavement clause now that has been popular where if someone has lost somebody, you can have it's almost like an exception. And if you're bereaved or if you say I'm depressed and what you really mean is I'm really sad.
Yeah, that's like one of these, that's what I was trying to get at. And everyone just called me a fucking asshole for even asking the question. But that's what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that difference. Like, is it really that you're depressed, or is it just that you need to try to fix your life, like, anyway.
Yeah, so if you needed to meet the criteria, then I would, and I've done this with my clients, if they need a label, there's the phrase name it and tame it is a way of sometimes feeling very normalized by your diagnosis and going, oh my God, I'm not the only one. I've heard that so many times. About that before a little bit. And then the other would be someone that says, I'm not just a label, I'm not just a depressed person, and that person doesn't really need the diagnosis in the first place. Yeah. But if it's for insurance, or if there's some uncomfortable way to go like, hey, look, I have diagnosed you and for this particular reason, then I might even bring the DSM in the room and say, look, these people made this book. It's clusters of symptoms, and you happen to meet these. All it means is that some people go through these circumstances just like you, and we don't have to call it depression, but Anthem Blue Cross wants to call it depression, and it doesn't matter what word. But I also hear you talking about a different phenomenon, which doesn't have to be just depression. That's what I guess I'm wondering. That could be anything. That could be trauma. Mark Epstein writes a lot but he's a Buddhist and a psychiatrist. Yeah. He's cronies with Joseph Goldstein and Sharon Salzberg and all them too. So, but he writes beautifully about these two worlds meeting. And but I hear the other problem of somebody having an explanation that they're using also as a justification. I guess you're getting at it when you say that. That's kind of what that's the way I see it. Like if someone says, if it helps to use clinical examples, I can, but someone might say, let's say you hear your neighbor beating up his wife, and you confront the guy and you go, what's the deal? And he says, oh, you don't understand. I've had such a hard day at work. That's the only reason I'm beating her. You wouldn't go, oh, you should have said that. Oh, okay. Well, have a great night. You'd say, I don't care. There's no excuse for that, right? For sure. So, of course, there is a neural correlate to man beating his wife, right? Yeah. There's something happened at day one that led to day N where that's what's going on, right? Yeah. And ideally, we can intervene. Something can happen before that day. But the fact is, at that day, at that moment, that's exactly what was going to happen, right? And so unfortunately people intervene afterwards in the form of police and arrests, etc. But there is a description of the way the world was before that. So maybe this brings us full circle to Lukianoff and John the Knight, is that there's a discomfort involved, or there's a phenomenon involved in any situation, any behavior, but is that enough? Is that the thing? Once we point to that, what are we left with? We still have to do something about it. The best part to me is that if a person is in therapy telling me about that, I don't need to say anything because they're already in therapy. It's great. They've done it. They've made it somewhere. Doesn't mean it's the end of the road, but they've made it far enough that now they're with somebody who can talk with them about this thing, especially in a non-stigmatizing way, where if someone is really depressed, even if they're not, let's say maybe they're just quote unquote using that depression. Yeah. Like people accuse them, my mom says I'm just using this as an excuse. Great, let's talk about mom. Let's talk about what do you want to do next, Yeah.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Oh, of course.
Makes way more sense to me.
This is my bread and butter, but do you want to say something about that too?
Sure. Maybe like a related concept or idea is the hedonic treadmill. Mm-hmm. It's like they did a study where they gave a bunch of people in the 90s, I think like a beeper or something.
Just a little close. There you
go.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm sure you've heard of this study where people would just, give sevens. They're just fine.
I think I have heard of that.
Occasionally they were like a 9 or something bad was happening and it was a 4. But on average, people are around like a 7. So this is just kind of like we have mild discomfort all the time usually. Like things are usually fine, but we're never constantly super happy.
Yeah.
And that's just, we're never going to get there. We always go back to this set happiness level, like we're on a treadmill.
Yeah.
That type of thing,
Well, meditation will fucking help that, right?
Yeah.
Because that's expectations. I mean,
like
if you're always expecting to be at a 10, I mean, we've talked about this before.